I'm Spider2B, and I'd like to welcome you to the 52nd video in the Punishing Grey Raven Guide series. Today, I want to talk about the return of PGR's liveliest artist, Ayla Kaleido, or Ayla Amp for short, the newest honor frame debuting in the upcoming update. Oh my god, not again.
Renaissant le fantastique.
And if it's your first time here, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future PGR guides and videos. You can also catch me on Twitch at twitch.tv/Spider2B, and if there's any corrections or I forget to mention something, I'll add it to the pinned comment down below. And without further ado, it's time! Despite being a unit you can obtain for free, more on that later, Ayla is not a character you should brush off. She's PGR's newest S-rank amplifier omniframe that deals pure ice damage and features attack buffs, healing, high burst damage, all while being a work of art. I mean, working honor art. And honestly, she could be an honorary member of the second generation attackers with the amount of carrying she does for the ice team. This video will discuss her skills, passives, ascensions, playstyle, weapons, builds, team setup, her cub, and my pull and build recommendations. I'll also be quickly covering the new Super Hypertune or Awakening upgrade system, as well as the new dorm feature coming with the new update. And as usual, I'll leave timestamps if you want to jump to a specific topic. Ayla's kit is actually fairly simple compared to a lot of the recent characters. Starting with her basic attack, it cleaves enemies with her gun lance, dealing ice damage in melee range. You rarely use it, but it's there I guess. Her QTE paints around a target, dealing ice damage and healing allies based on Ayla's attack. Next, let's talk about her orb abilities. Starting with the red orb, Ayla rides her gun lance around an enemy in front of her, dealing ice damage to the encircled target. It's technically her highest damage orb, but it has a long cast animation, and you can dodge at the very end of the attack to at least cancel the end lag. Her blue orb throws her gun lance forward, flipping it to deal AoE ice damage to enemies in front of her. The orb doesn't really have much end lag, so you can quickly chain this into the next attack, and it helps that it's also her swap and attack. And her yellow orb fires her gun lance, dealing ranged ice damage to a target in front of her. Plus, you can dodge right after firing the projectile to cancel the end animation and save some time. Next up is her core passive and ultimate. As always, I'll cover them in detail first, and then summarize it in a simplified TLDR at the end. Ayla's core passive is indicated by the gun lance gauge at the bottom of the screen, with the left side being the default color given, and the right side being unfilled. When using a 3-orb ping, it will fill the right side with the color of the orb you used. If the left and right colors don't match, holding basic attack will trigger her core passive attack, painting 2 circles and dealing ice damage to enemies in front of her. This will also buff Ayla's extra damage bonus for a brief period, and the color on the right will be cleared, but the default color on the left doesn't change. If the colors are matching, holding down basic attack will trigger a different core passive attack, where Ayla dashes behind the enemy to do an AoE spin, dealing ice damage. This will buff Ayla's ice damage bonus for a brief period, and the right color will be cleared, and the default color on the left will change into a random color. Plus, every time Ayla performs these core passive attacks, she gains about 90% of her ultimate energy, restores HP based on her attack, and stores a backup paint charge for later, up to a maximum of 3, and this is indicated below the right side of her gauge. And her core passive also changes during her ultimate, which is her painting field. Pinging orbs in this state will let Ayla ride a big paintbrush through an enemy, dealing ice damage, and you can hold dodge to stop Ayla from going too far. Those backup paint charges from earlier are consumed each time Ayla hits the enemy, giving her the next 3-orb ping. Think of it sort of similar to Hyper Lee's bullet stacks. And the 3-orb pings will increase the base damage of her ultimate nuke up to 5 times, indicated by the gauge at the bottom of the screen. And when casting these orbs, Ayla will gain damage reduction and interrupt resist. And lastly, when Ayla heals, she gives the team 10% ice damage for a brief period. And now for her ultimate, which has 2 parts. The first part activates her painting field, dealing some ice damage and activating time stop. She'll start with a free 3-orb ping, and existing orb pings will be sorted and ordered into 3-orb pings, kind of similar to Lucia Plume. Note that you cannot basic attack in this form though. Pressing the ultimate button again anytime during this form will trigger time stop and splash Ayla's art and physics to deal massive ice damage. The art will remain afterwards to heal for 30% of Ayla's attack per second to all allies in range, including herself, for a brief period. If you filled that ultimate gauge to full, her art will be more vivid, but the ultimate damage multiplier is not exponentially increased, it's just a little bit more pretty to look at if you're not too distracted already. So to simplify and sum this all up, swap in and hold basic attack, then use a 3-orb ping and hold basic attack again, then use your ultimate, spam 3-orb pings to fill up the gauge, and then ult to finish. Congratulations, you're an artist now. As for the leader passive, the team gets increased attack, and Ayla gets increased ice damage bonus. And being an amplifier class, Ayla grants any swapped in character 10% increased attack and 10% ice damage. Next up, let's cover her rank upgrades. At S5, it procs all available QTEs when using her first ultimate to enter that painting field. It's a very strong upgrade to guarantee the Da Vinci and Ice Shred, and is highly recommended. At double S, it gives her extra damage in the painting field, and she also gains about 38% of her ultimate energy and 1 backup paint charge after she enters the field. Overall, it enables Ayla to guarantee her 3 paint charges every time, and you only need 1 3-orb ping and some hold basics to get to her ultimate, which is crucial for her rotation. Her double S3 basically lets you do any 3-orb ping for her core passive attack, and you'll get both buff effects. It also adds some ice damage bonus to her core passive attack as well. In general, it allows you to not care which color orb to ping, and it serves as a modest damage increase. Her triple S, like any amplifier, doubles the amplifier class passive, increasing the team's ice damage bonus to 10% and her team attack buff to 20%. It also increases the buffs that she gets from her core passive attack to 15%. Triple S3 increases the damage of her core passive during her painting field, Triple S6 increases the damage of her 3-orb pings and core passive attacks, and Triple S Plus increases her splash art ultimate damage. So, for my rank recommendations, aim for at least double S if you plan to use her. It allows her ultimate to come up faster and deal more damage, and it basically unlocks all of her essential functions so she can execute her rotations properly. And since she's already a free unit, you can attain pancake shards over time to get her to double S for free. Double S3, at the end of the day, is just a slight damage increase and is not necessary for Ayla to function, and Triple S is a nice damage upgrade for the team, and it also noticeably improves her damage for Battle Pass spenders, but again, not necessary. Since Ayla is a free unit, I'll provide a more detailed explanation of the pull plans in the pull and build recommendation section of the video, since it depends on your specific account. As for weapons, her 5-star weapon is alright for free-to-play players and should be the minimum investment since her healing scales off attack and she deals significant damage herself. Her 6-star signature weapon increases her ultimate's base damage as well as her ice damage buff whenever Ayla or an ally is healed. Also, as an amplifier, she has potential access to 6-star support resonances, and because she's the main DPS for the ice team, her signature weapon is a strong investment and a recommended pickup if you have the funds. That being said, her signature weapon is not essential for her core gameplay, unlike Hyper Lee's weapon, since the passives mainly just help buff her and the team. And like all 6-star weapons, feel free to pick it up anytime since it'll be available at a permanent 80% rate up. And if you're going to resonate her weapon, prioritize Superconducting Axial Ray and Glorious Spear to help support the team and her damage. Deadline timing is also very nice, as it makes her rotation more consistently hit the max ult gauge to do more damage, as well as open up some potential rotations. And I often like swapping one of the support resonances to deadline timing for comfort or personal damage. For her early game 5-star memories, you can run 4-piece Ike and 2-piece Gloria, and Ayla has 2 primary 6-star memory options. For all ranks, she'll want to run her custom 4-piece set, Irene, for her kit-specific damage multipliers, and as for the 2-piece set, it depends on the usage. You can run 2-piece Darwin to boost her orb damage, since she constantly does 3-orb pings, which will proc Darwin's passive, and with double S, she gets enough energy for her ultimate already. You can also run 2-piece Cotty to get her ultimate quicker, and it allows for 2 non-full charge ultimates with deadline timing. Personally, I often rotate between the 2 sets. I use Darwin to deal more raw damage or emphasize a full team rotation with Plume and Chrome. Other times I use Cotty for Warzone time stop spam with her ultimate, or when I need to ult faster for weaker pancake bosses. So, I like having both sets, but if you can only afford one, Darwin is the more recommended generalist set for its high damage in all situations. For the memory positions, I'd recommend sticking both 2 pieces on the top positions, so slots 1, 2, or 3, to avoid Darwin's lower base attack, and allowing you to easily swap between Darwin and Cotty if needed. For both sets, you want to resonate plus 15 attack on the top slot and core passive on the bottom slot, since it's the majority of her damage. As for alternative sets, using support sets isn't as worth on Ayla as other amplifiers, especially the ice team where Ayla is the one doing the most damage, so it's not worth having her on a non-DPS set. But if you get a triple S and want to use her to support other elemental teams, you could run 4-piece Da Vinci. However, Selena is the preferred off-element amplifier since her QTE animation is much longer for the Da Vinci duration. As for Hypertune, the
Renaissant le Fantastique update
introduces a bonus for fully Hypertune units, which I refer to on stream as Super Hypertune, and it's why you see the orange resonance arrows on my builds. To unlock it, you need to clear each new border pack stage, then place a fully Hypertune unit in that stage slot, and each stage slot will correspond to a memory position, so 1 through 6, and every Hypertune memory in that memory position will get a 1% damage bonus, up to 12%. Fully Hypertune units will also be able to select the color of the starting 3-orb ping, so for example you want to activate a specific QTE, and I highly recommend you Hypertune the bottom, then the top row for all new generation attackers like Bolter and Hyper Lee. Ayla is also recommended as well since she does a lot of damage herself. And if you're sweating thinking about all the new Hypertune materials you suddenly need, worry not, the new dorm missions and events will offer free Hypertune materials over time to help compensate for fully Hypertuning these units. Still, you want to manage your Hypertune materials wisely, you won't have enough to fully Hypertune every single character. Alright, let's talk teams. This will be the current end goal meta ice team for a long time. You'll always want Ayla Amp as the leader here since he's the main damage for the team, and the starter is usually Chrome Glory or the Da Vinci holder, but for extended fights like Warzone, Norman War, Babel, or even tankier Pancake bosses, Lucia Plume is often the starter and swaps off immediately into Ayla Amp. As for the setup, you'll want to run Ayla Amp with 4-piece Irene and 2-piece Darwin or Caudy on the yellow slot, Lucia Plume with 4-piece Hannah and 2-piece Darwin on the blue slot since that's her lowest damage orb, and Chrome Glory on 4-piece Chen Juwen and 2-piece Einstein, or 4-piece Da Vinci and 2-piece Einstein on the red slot since Plume prefers red orbs. Chrome Glory doesn't do as much damage compared to Plume or Ayla Amp, so sometimes he's better off buffing the team with 4-piece Da Vinci to support the burst damage of Ayla Amp or Plume, especially if Chrome has a signature weapon with the QTE Ice Shred already built in. But 4-piece Chen Juwen is still a very viable option, and it allows Chrome to do a bit more personal damage while still being able to apply the resist shred to enemies. In these longer extended fights, the damage difference isn't really massive, so you can opt to run either set on Chrome for Warzone. But since Ayla and Plume both do burst damage, I personally tend to run Da Vinci a bit more to buff them up. And if you don't have Lucia Plume, just replace her with Bambinata in the meantime, running 4-piece Hannah and 2-piece Darwin. Bambi can help cover Ayla Kaleido's orb downtime by being a sub DPS, and the more investment you have in Bambi in terms of ranks, the better she can fulfill the sub DPS role. And if you don't have Chrome Glory, an option is to invest in the double Ayla team. You can run Ayla Brilliance on 4-piece Chen Juwen or Da Vinci with 2-piece Gloria to help support off-field. Alternatively, you could run Triple S Changyu with 4-piece Chen Juwen and 2-piece Einstein if you want to cover more orb downtime, and this requires them to be on-field to proc the Ice Shred from his blue orb. And if you don't have Plume and Chrome, then here's the pure budget Ice team. As for shorter fights like Pancake, Ayla can often solo or come close to soloing most bosses. Here you want to unironically support the support by bringing buffers for Ayla to do maximum damage. So for her optimal Pancake team, it'll be a Triple S amplifier like Selena Capriccio with 4-piece Guinevere and 2-piece Gloria to greatly boost her damage, or a Triple S Wansha with 2-piece Gloria, 2-piece Guinevere, and 2-piece Lantern. You can also run 2-piece Samantha if you don't have 2-piece Lantern. Since Wansha doesn't really proc the 4-piece Guinevere set well, this 2-2-2 set is the best. He also has the added benefit of gap close with his yellow and red orbs, so sometimes I run him over the amplifier to get to the boss quicker. And you'll definitely want Chrome Glory on 4-piece Da Vinci and 2-piece Einstein for the buffs and Ice Shred. If you don't have Chrome Glory, give 4-piece Da Vinci to Wansha and bring Ayla Brilliance on 4-piece Chen Juwen for off-field Ice Shred. As usual, positions can vary and the best team will depend on what characters you have and invested in. Regarding some things I've learned while playing Ayla, remember to hold basic attack right after swapping in to perform her core passive attack. I've mentioned this before, but overlooking this could determine if you get enough energy for her ultimate or not. Ideally, you want to try to build the first ultimate with the least amount of orbs to save them for when Ayla enters the painting field. For example, sometimes when Ayla swaps in, she'll have enough orbs for 2 3-orb pings, but not always. So after swapping in Ayla and using her core passive attack, you want to try to matrix an attack afterwards and then use that matrix ping to do another core passive attack and enter her ultimate. That way you'll guarantee enough 3-orb pings during the painting field to fill up the ultimate gauge and max out the ultimate damage. Also, you can dodge cancel her core passive attack to skip the end lag and make this easier. When in her painting field, keep in mind you need to hit an enemy to consume the backup paint charge and get the free 3-orb ping. Although this seems obvious, if for example you're transitioning between Warzone waves and no enemies have spawned, using a 3-orb ping too early and not hitting anything will have Ayla travel to Narnia and you have to gap close again to hit the enemy for another 3-orb ping. So hold dodge when necessary to keep her from going too far and try to have the enemy targeted before using a 3-orb ping. Also, you don't need to max out the ult gauge on Ayla every time, so during the painting field, ping as many 3-orb pings as you deem necessary to finish the enemy with her second splash art ultimate. Lastly, don't stress too much about trying to keep track of mixing and matching the orb colors for her core passive buffs. It's not really worth the extra brain power, even at double S, just hit whichever 3-orb ping you can, and then you can go from there. But for the most part, she's fairly straightforward to play, so let's talk about her team rotations next. Starting with the end gold meta ice team, in terms of investment, the team rotation doesn't really require much outside of Ayla's double S. But if you have Chrome's signature weapon, it helps a lot for consistent ice shred, and deadline timing on Plume and Ayla can also help make the team less reliant on Matrix for 3-orb pings. For extended or harder fights, it's mainly just rotating between Plume, Chrome, and Ayla. Whoever's next off cooldown is who you swap into. You'll want to quickly run through Ayla and Plume's damage rotations. timing Chrome or DaVinci QTEs during their burst damage windows. Then fill any downtime in between them with Chrome Glory's basic attacks, orbs, or ultimate. Generally, the swap cooldowns line up pretty nicely, but you want to try to rotate through Plume and Ayla's rotation as quickly as possible to take advantage of the 10-second Amplifier class buff. Usually in longer fights, Plume is the starter, but swaps off immediately into Ayla Amp at the beginning of the battle. That way, when Plume swaps back in after Chrome, she'll have more orbs at her disposal to get all 4 charges for her ultimate, and the DaVinci effect will be off cooldown from Ayla's rotation. If you want to front load more damage, you can start with Chrome Glory and then swap into Ayla then Plume to do their burst rotations. Overall, it really depends on what fight you're doing and what the first enemy wave is, so as always, it depends. Just never have Ayla start the fight because she really wants her swap and attack to rotate properly. If you run Kadi and Deadline Timing, Ayla can do 2 non-fully charged ultimates, so when you're in the painting field, fill up the ultimate gauge to halfway, so that's 3 3-orb pings, and then press her ultimate preemptively. Then use the 2 leftover 3-orb pings with core passive attacks, and build and use her next ultimate to run this exact same rotation again before swapping out. You can proc DaVinci QTEs twice during these rotations by using DaVinci right before she uses her first Splash Art ultimate, then using DaVinci QTEs again right when she uses her second Splash Art ultimate. This rotation setup is mainly used to spam time stop in Warzone with a high invested Ayla. If you have only Plume or Chrome, you will try to rotate between them and Ayla as much as possible. With Plume, you have some on-field time with Triple S Changyu or stall basic attacks on Ayla Kaleido if you're running Ayla Brilliance instead. And with Chrome, Bambi will do some damage on field until you can swap off to the next character. And finally, if Ayla Amp is your only Ice S-Rank Omniframe, primarily rotate between her and Bambi if you're using Ayla Brilliance, or swap into Triple S Changyu if you're using him. Unfortunately, Ayla is designed for swapping in longer fights and runs out of orbs quickly, so it's hard for her to solo carry a team. Luckily, we have some alright on-field sub DPSs in the form of Bambi and Triple S Changyu. As for short fights where Ayla can nuke the boss with her core passive and ultimate alone, you just swap an attack into Ayla's regular damage rotation supported by QTE bots. And these QTE bots can be achieved economically with A ranks such as Wansha and Ayla Brilliance if you don't have Chrome Glory. Otherwise, you just swap in an ice attacker like Plume or Bambi to finish off the fight. And if the enemy is thicker than Ayla herself, follow the extended fight rotation. Alright, now let's talk about her cub, which is the Squid. It essentially buffs her core passive base damage while occasionally attacking alongside Ayla when she's riding her paintbrush, but more importantly, it gathers enemies and deals ice damage to them. As for the active skill, I like using the first one for the gather and crowd control. And for which skills to upgrade, level her exclusive skill first, followed by the ice damage increase, attack and damage bonus buffs, and then the pet damage last. But is it worth pulling? Well, it's a very strong pet that gives her much needed grouping due to the way her abilities can separate mobs, and it's usable at S, but double S is pretty nice for the extra damage. Overall, it's a high priority pet if you have the spare pet tickets or black cards. Alright, now let's discuss the possible investment pull paths that you can take for Ayla Kaleido. You can grab up to 50 of her shards from the new dorm missions to get enough for a free copy. So how the new dorm missions work is each day you can send characters out to expedition missions, and after several hours you can claim the expedition currency and use them to buy Ayla shards, Hypertune materials, and even weapon coding blueprints. It takes about a month to farm all 50 shards from the shop, but is painless and low effort, unlike the
recitativo di fantasia
permanent game mode for Selena Capriccio. Thank God. Also, you can save some of the existing gold coins from the dorm now, so when you've gotten enough XP to level up the dorm mission, you can upgrade it with the gold coins. That way you can send out more expedition missions at a time. And like all S-Rank Omniframes, over time you can get them to double S for free with Pancake Skulls. And the great thing is that at double S, she unlocks all the essential gameplay functions to be a one-shot replacement for extended fights, and a Plume alternative or support for shorter ones, unlike Selena Capriccio, which heavily prefers triple S to be competitive with Vera Rosen. But like Selena Capriccio before her, Ayla Kaleido's shards will be added to the Battle Pass shop after the update releases. As for the pull plans, for spenders you can choose to pull a copy from the banner, then use 500 Pancake Skulls to get the 30 shards for double S, then pull her pet at 100% rate up for the grouping, then pull her weapon to boost Ayla's damage, and then use the 50 free shards from the dorm expeditions to push her to double S3. Plus, if you have the Battle Pass or you've saved up Battle Pass vouchers, you can continue to get the first 20 discounted shards from the monthly Battle Pass shop, and then the next month you can get the remaining 20 to get her all the way to triple S. For free-to-play players, to save black cards, you can opt to unlock her for free from the dorm missions and get her to double S through Pancake. And if you choose to, you can accumulate up Battle Pass vouchers over time to slowly get Ayla to triple S, but it'll just take many months. But even then, I'd prioritize Selena Capriccio's shards from the voucher exchange to get her to triple S first, since she needs it more than Ayla. If you have the spare black cards, you can consider grabbing her pet, then her signature 6-star weapon to help her better carry the ice team. Her pet is very valuable because it keeps the mobs from displacing and boosts Ayla's damage as well, and it will also be available at a limited 100% rate up before being permanently 80%. Alternatively, the weapon boosts her personal damage a ton, which is ideal since she's the primary DPS, while also buffing the ice team through its passives and support resonances. But since it's a permanent 80% rate up and both the weapon and pet are essential, I lean a bit more towards picking up the pet first, but you'll want both eventually. But regardless of any of that, Ayla is free, so definitely build her because amplifiers just do it all. Ayla's debut is like when Live Imperia was released. She handles almost everything for the team: the healer, the buffer, the DPS, the time stopper. She honestly acts more like a main DPS in a sense, with Plume being more of a sub DPS now. And without Ayla, the ice team suffers greatly from a lack of time stop and consistent burst damage. Plus, with her being an amplifier class, she's very future proof, with Kuro refusing to power creep them. And like Selena Capriccio, if you're able to get her to triple S, you'll have a versatile support to slot into any team that currently doesn't have an amplifier. This next part isn't exactly related to Ayla Amp, but I want to mention it in the video anyways. I highly recommend after you finish fully hypertuning Bolter, Hyperly, and Ayla Amp to fully hypertune Plume next so she can start the fight with a guaranteed 3 orb red ping. Since she's so dependent on it, it makes her significantly more bearable to play by removing one layer of red orb RNG and making at least 2 red orb 3 pings more achievable for big burst damage. And to top it all off, Ayla has the best screen interactions to date, and her login greeting makes punishing Grey Raven feel more like welcoming Grey Raven. And also she did. Anyways, if there's any updates or corrections, be sure to check out the pinned comment of the video. If you have any questions, drop in the comments or ask the community Discord at dis.gg/Sparta2b. We're always there to help. And at the rate that I upload, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future guides or videos. And if you find this video informative, drop a like. When I'm free, I'll stream on Twitch at twitch.tv/Sparta2b, so drop a follow you want to see when I go live. And I also try to plan to stream on YouTube as well, but we'll see how that works. And as always, thank you to my YouTube members. You have my appreciation and gratitude. And I want to say Happy New Year as well. I can't believe I've been making PTR guides for almost 2.5 years. It only feels like it's been like a year. So for everyone who's been watching the videos and the live streams and sharing and commenting and liking, thank you, and here's to another year. And as an appreciation of my thanks and the tight black card times we're in with the back-to-back S ranks, I'll be giving away some monthly packs on my next Twitch stream as well as on my Discord if you can't make it, so stay tuned. Anyways, I feel like every free waking moment was spent to make this guide as comprehensive as possible, so hopefully it does our cheerful painter justice. So thank you for watching, happy painting, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Peace late.